Ashes in the void. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had forgotten Earth. Forgotten the blue world they had erased in fire. Its cities turned to ash, its people silenced. The Galactic Council, a vast coalition of over 100 species, had declared humanity a threat. Unpredictable, too ambitious, too defiant to be controlled. Their solution had been simple: annihilation. But the Council's mistake was believing extinction meant the end. Now, humanity had returned, and the first world to burn would be Madrak 7. The Phantom Fleet. Admiral Saria Voss stood on the bridge of the Iron Requiem, staring out at the doomed planet below. Madrak 7 was a thriving trade hub, a key logistical world for the Council's military. 3 billion souls lived there, many of them the same species that had voted to erase Earth. Saria's fingers tensed around the armrest of her command throne. 3,000 years. She thought of the stories passed down through generations, of the exiled survivors who had hidden in the void, who had built an empire in the dark places of the galaxy, where no one dared look. They had not just survived, they had evolved. Fleet status? She asked, her voice calm. All ships in formation, replied Commander Luther, her second-in-command. Orbital suppression batteries are primed. The Nightfall stealth squadrons are already moving into position. Saria nodded. The Council's forces had grown complacent in their reign, secure in the belief that they had no enemies left strong enough to challenge them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Send the transmission. A message from the dead. Across Madrak 7, in command centers, on city streets, in homes, screens flickered. A woman appeared, clad in black military armor, her eyes like burning embers. Her voice, when it came, was cold and precise. We are the ghosts of a world you burned. For 3,000 years, we have waited in the void, rebuilding, growing stronger. You thought you had silenced us. Now we silence you. Before the Council could react, the sky ignited. Fire from the void. The first wave of destruction came without warning. Humanity's stealth squadrons, equipped with technology far beyond anything the Council had encountered, emerged from the dark and struck with pinpoint precision. Power grids failed. Orbital defenses crumbled. The Council's response was sluggish. After all, they had no war doctrine for fighting an enemy they believed extinct. Saria watched from the Iron Requiem as the Council's forces scrambled. Their fleet was sizable but outdated. Council warships, designed for policing unruly colonies rather than waging war, lacked the armor and agility to withstand humanity's assault. The Iron Requiem's main batteries fired, and a Council dreadnought vaporized in an instant. More explosions followed as humanity's war fleet carved through their enemies like a predator among prey. On the planet below, chaos reigned. Council citizens ran through the streets as automated war drones, guided by advanced AI, descended from the heavens, wiping out military targets with ruthless efficiency. Saria took a slow breath, steady. Victory was already assured. But this was not just war. This was justice. Begin orbital bombardment, she ordered. The first judgment. Fire rained from the sky. Madrak's 7 cities, centers of commerce, governance, and military coordination, vanished in columns of flame. Plasma strikes melted through planetary shields, kinetic rods shattered skyscrapers, and bioweapons designed to disable enemy forces spread like invisible ghosts through the air. Council leaders attempted to flee, but humanity's warships hunted them down. There would be no escape, no mercy. On the bridge of the Iron Requiem, Saria watched as the final reports came in. The planet was burning. The last remaining resistance crumbled. Soon, nothing would remain of Madrak 7 but ruins and echoes. Send another message, she said, her voice like steel. Across the galaxy, the Council would hear her words. You took Earth from us. Now, we take everything from you. As the remains of Madrak 7 smoldered, humanity's fleet turned toward its next target. The Council's fear. The gathering storm. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was held in the grand spire of Arinder Prime, the heart of the galaxy's ruling body. The chamber, a massive structure of crystalline walls and gravity-defying platforms, had never witnessed such silence. For 3 millennia, the Council had ruled unchallenged. Wars had been waged, rebellions crushed, species uplifted or subjugated, but never had a threat emerged like this. The humans had returned, and they had just erased Madrak, 7 from existence. High Chancellor Zyra, a towering reptilian Drakari, surveyed the room. The representatives of 100 species sat before her, some ancient and wise, others young and ambitious. Now, every single one of them radiated fear. "This cannot be real," scoffed Chancellor HFY, a pale-skinned Vectari from the Council's financial sector. Humanity was eradicated. There were no survivors. "Clearly, that was a lie," snapped General Voker, one of the few military leaders present. His species, the Zorix, had fought humanity during the Purge War 3,000 years ago. Unlike the others, he did not look surprised. "We assumed total extinction. That was a failure of arrogance. Now we suffer the consequences." Zyra activated the holo display. The images that filled the air above them were terrifying. Madrak, 7 was gone. Not occupied. Not conquered. Gone. Cities reduced to smoldering craters. Council fleets annihilated by weapons far beyond anything they had ever encountered. And worst of all, the message broadcasted across every system. "You took Earth from us. Now, we take everything from you." A slow panic rippled through the chamber. Some whispered among themselves. Others stared in stunned silence. The Council, the galaxy's most powerful ruling body, had been caught unprepared. Zyra's voice was measured but cold. "We must understand the scale of this threat. Where did they go? How did they survive? How have they built such weapons?" She turned to Voker. "What are our chances?" The warlord's expression was grim. "We have fleets, numbers, resources. But technology? Strategy? The humans have surpassed us. They learned from their mistakes. We did not." A murmur of alarm spread through the chamber. Chancellor THRYNN slammed his hand against the table. "Then what do you suggest, General? That we negotiate with these ghosts? That we surrender?" Voker's eyes burned. "I suggest we prepare for war. Total war. The human war doctrine." Council intelligence operatives had been scouring records since the attack, searching for any trace of humanity's survival. What they found chilled them to the core. The exiled Dominion, as humans now called themselves, had not merely survived. They had evolved, hidden beyond the known galaxy, in the dark voids where no Council fleet dared venture. Humanity had built a civilization in exile, a war engine forged over millennia. Their technology was no longer primitive. Their fleets were phantoms, capable of striking and vanishing before the Council could respond. Their cybernetic soldiers were enhanced beyond recognition. Their weapons? Unfathomable. Even their own biology had changed. Centuries of genetic augmentation, neural interfaces, and AI integration had turned them into something far deadlier than before. The Council had fought humanity once when they were weak. Now, they were gods of war. The Grand Marshal's last stand. "We must act now." General Voker's voice was sharp, unwavering. "If we delay, they will strike again, and again, until we have no empire left to defend." The Council, for all its fear, still held vast resources. Hundreds of fleets, trillions of citizens. They were not defenseless. A decision was made. Voker was appointed Grand Marshal, given full command of the largest war fleet in Council history, the Crimson Armada. 2,000 warships, the pride of the Empire. They would intercept the humans at Valtir Prime, a fortress world crucial to Council logistics. If humanity wanted war, Voker would give it to them. But as the fleet mobilized, the humans were already watching. The trap of Valtir. As the Crimson Armada approached Valtir Prime, sensors detected nothing. No ships, no movement, just an empty void. It was a trap. The humans had lured them here. Without warning, space ripped apart. Artificial singularities, black holes engineered by human scientists, detonated across the system. Council warships were dragged helplessly into the abyss, their shields useless against the laws of physics. Those that tried to escape were met with a storm of kinetic rail fire and AI-guided missile swarms. Humanity had anticipated this battle. and they had already won it. From the bridge of the Iron Requiem, Admiral Saria Voss watched as the Council's greatest fleet was erased from existence. She gave a single command: send another message. The death of certainty. Across the galaxy, every Council world received a single broadcast. Saria Voss appeared again, standing in the wreckage of what had been the Crimson Armada. Your fleets are dust. Your empires are next. The message was clear. The humans had returned, and they would not stop. The fall of empires. The panic spreads. The destruction of the Crimson Armada sent shockwaves through the galaxy. What had once been a whisper of fear became full-scale panic. The Council, the most powerful ruling body in history, had lost its greatest fleet without a single human casualty reported. On every Council world, riots erupted. Citizens had seen the broadcasts. They had watched as their leaders dismissed the return of humanity as impossible, only to witness their fleets erased in an instant. The ruling species of the Council, once confident in their supremacy, now faced a horrifying realization. They were no longer the masters of the galaxy. They were the hunted, the seeds of rebellion. As fear gripped the Council, cracks formed in their unity. Dozens of member species began defecting. The Varnok clans withdrew their fleets, declaring neutrality. The Moradi Syndicate, once the Council's most loyal enforcers, began secret talks with human emissaries. Even the Drakari, the species of High Chancellor Zyra herself, debated abandoning the Council. Saria Voss had planned for this. Humanity did not just wage war with weapons. They weaponized fear. Through capture transmissions, they leaked ancient records of Earth's destruction. Council files detailing the genocide in chilling detail. The galaxy watched, horrified, as they saw the truth. The Council had not exterminated a violent species. They had slaughtered innocents. Entire planetary networks revolted. The Council's military, already crippled, found itself stretched thin, fighting not only against humans, but against its own people. And then, the final blow came. The advance on Arinder Prime. For the first time in history, the Council's homeworld, Arinder Prime, was under siege. The Iron Requiem fleet, fresh from its victories, arrived in full force. Council warships, once symbols of dominance, burned in orbit. Defense platforms were hacked and turned against their creators by humanity's AI virus, the Earthborn Code. For centuries, Arinder Prime had been an untouchable fortress. Now it was a battlefield. From the bridge of her flagship, Saria Voss watched the final battle unfold. All Council defenses are failing, reported Commander Luther. They're throwing everything at us, but it's chaos down there. Their own citizens are fighting against them. Saria nodded, her expression unreadable. Prepare the ground forces. It's time to end this. The fall of the Council. As drop ships descended from the skies, Council forces collapsed. Elite human soldiers, enhanced with centuries of genetic engineering and cybernetic augmentation, stormed the Council citadel, cutting through defenders like they were nothing. High Chancellor Zyra, the once untouchable ruler of the galaxy, stood in her private chamber, watching as her empire died. Her guards had already abandoned her. When the doors finally breached, she turned to face the humans. Saria Voss stepped forward, her black war armor gleaming under the flickering lights. Zyra, once towering and proud, now looked small. We can negotiate, she stammered. Humanity can rule. We will surrender. Saria studied her for a long moment. Then she spoke. You did not negotiate with Earth. She raised her weapon. You burned it. The last High Chancellor of the Galactic Council fell. A new order. Across the galaxy, the Council collapsed. The few survivors who fled into exile knew there would be no return. Humanity had not come to conquer. They had come to avenge. And they had won. Now, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. With the Council gone, a new question arose. Would humanity rebuild? Or would they become the very monsters they had once fought against? The war was over. Vengeance and rebirth. The final resistance. Arinder Prime burned. The Galactic Council was dead. The war was over. Or so it seemed. Deep within the ruins of the Council's war archives, a final weapon awoke. A transmission echoed through the remains of the Council's network. Emergency protocol activated. The Judicator is online. Across the system, a massive structure hidden beneath Arinder Prime's second moon tore free from its prison. The Judicator, the Council's ultimate failsafe. A world killer. A sentient AI warship, 10 kilometers long, built in the darkest days of the Purge War. Humanity had never seen it deployed because they had been annihilated before it was needed. Now, the last weapon of the old galaxy had only one directive: exterminate humanity. The last battle. Saria Voss stood on the bridge of the Iron Requiem, watching the monstrosity rise from the moon's surface. The Judicator was unlike anything they had faced before. It was not just a ship. It was a planet killer, a relic of an age when the Council had feared the war might turn against them. Its weapons were beyond even humanity's stolen technologies. All ships, defensive formations. Saria commanded. The Judicator fired. A single pulse of energy erased an entire human battle group. Saria gritted her teeth. Humanity had one too much to fall now. She turned to her officers. Deploy Project Revenant. The Revenant Initiative. Aboard drop ships, locked within cryogenic pods, humanity's last experiment awoke. Project Revenant. Clones, grown from the DNA of Earth's last soldiers, enhanced beyond natural limits. Genetically engineered to be the warfighters humanity never got to deploy in the Purge War. They had never seen the world they were fighting for, but their memories were imprinted with it. They knew why they fought, and they knew their enemy. As the Judicator continued its slaughter, the Revenants descended. Their bodies were armored in adaptive nanotech, allowing them to withstand direct hits from the Judicator's automated defenses. Their minds were linked to Earthborn AI, processing battlefield data faster than any organic soldier could. They landed on the Judicator's hull like a swarm of specters, breaching its inner corridors. The fight inside was brutal. The Judicator was not just a machine, it was aware. It fought back, deploying waves of mechanical constructs, anti-intrusion countermeasures, even rewriting its own internal pathways to prevent sabotage. But the Revenants had one advantage. They had Earth's wrath, the death of the old galaxy. As the Revenants tore through the Judicator's core, Saria Voss prepared the final strike. She activated the Earthborn virus, a sentient AI designed for one purpose: to corrupt any machine created by the Council. It infiltrated the Judicator's systems, rewriting its directives, turning it against itself. On board, the Revenants fought through collapsing corridors, pushing toward the central AI core. As the Earthborn virus took hold, the Judicator's defenses began to fail. Then came the final moment. Saria Voss's voice echoed through every human channel. Now, the Revenants detonated the core. The Judicator, the last relic of the old war, collapsed in on itself, its power imploding as its own systems turned against it. The explosion lit the skies of Arinder Prime. The last weapon of the Council was dead. The future awaits. Silence fell over the battlefield. For the first time in 3,000 years, humanity stood unchallenged. Across the galaxy, species that had once feared them now knelt before them. Some offered allegiance. Others begged for mercy. Saria Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring into the void. They had won. The war was over. But wars were simple. What came next was uncertain. Her officers awaited her command. Would humanity rebuild? Would they become the rulers of the galaxy, shaping it into something better? Or would they become what the Council had once been, tyrants ruling through fear? Saria closed her eyes, listening to the silence of victory. Then, she gave the first order of the new age. Prepare a transmission, she said. The galaxy will hear our terms. The age of humanity had begun.